Welcome to the Flower Prophecies, a podcast exploring all things flower essences and remedies and flower therapy, and how this vibrational plant medicine has the potential to heal and shift our individual and collective health and consciousness. We'll be diving deep into the specifics of individual essences, nature's energetics, emotional healing and growth, as well as hearing client case studies, hosting special guests and professionals, and I'll be sharing my own personal explorations and philosophies channeled straight from the flowers. Through my own unearthing, I have discovered what I believe to be the most profound teaching of the flowers, and I now wish to share with you the practice of alchemizing fear into beauty. Welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. Today I have Covington of Flora Apothecary. She is a practicing energy intuitive herbalist and has studied a range of healing modalities. She combines the scientific with the intuitive to achieve healing at a core root level. Working predominantly within the field of women's health and fertility, Caitlin uses herbal medicine, flower essences, and ceremony to heal, transform, and empower. Welcome, Caitlin. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So let's get straight into it. I would love if you could share what your work with your clients looks like and involves in your current clinic.
Sure. So I'm in a phase of I'm saying my maiden to mother transition of my business.
Beautiful.
I had a baby in October 2022. So my business is shifting and changing and growing with this new stage of life, but it's stayed really mainly grounded in herbal medicine one-on-one work, and then grounded in kind of under that umbrellas like teas and flower essences and custom tincture, liquid, extract formulas for people. And I also do what I call healing sessions. So that's a energy work type of session where people, we either do it online or in person. And that's kind of more diving into the emotional, spiritual aspect of things. So that's really what my work is rooted in. I'd say that a lot of people find me when they've tried lots of other things, and then they kind of find me sometimes as a last effort to, balance their hormones or get pregnant or work with their depression or anxiety or their autoimmune disease. So it can be a lot of different things that people are coming to me for, but I always find that we're treating multiple levels, not just the physical level. And yeah, so aside from that kind of one-on-one clinical work, I also usually a few times a year do some teaching, sometimes online classes, sometimes in person. I sell some teas and products and things like that. So yeah, I kind of have my hand in many honey pots of the herbal world.
Beautiful, but I feel like it all is sort of synchronized into that one, world of plant medicine and connection to spirit. And
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's so funny, isn't it, that how you have mentioned that usually your offerings are the last effort for people that have been through any number of things. And it's I find that so interesting, how that unfolds. It's people have to learn, through all these different avenues what is not right for them before ultimately finding that medicine that's going to be their match.
Yeah, for sure. I think healing is such an interesting journey because it can be, this winding spiral of, sometimes trying different practitioners, trying different pharmaceutical Western medicine approaches, trying really esoteric, etheric healing, I think when we're really desperate for healing and solutions and just to feel better in our lives and in our body, I think that can really take you to your knees. And I find that people are often drawn to me because they just have a feeling. They just are like, I don't know, I had a feeling about you, or a friend mentioned you to me. And, you know, you said you're not very like techie. I'm not very techie either. You know, I keep being like, I'm going to update my website, but, you know, I'm going to have to recruit my husband to help me. Like, I should probably like brand a bit better on social media, but I'm like, oh, whatever. That's not really like the focus. Like my focus is so heavily on, you know, preparing myself to be ready and in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally to show up for this work that is quite intense when you're working on people's, you know, helping their life on so many deep levels. So, you know, for me, it's really a spiritual calling in this life. And I feel at this point, like, you know, I'm 35, like this is all I've done since I was forever, you know? Wow. So it's been like my whole adult life. And I feel like I'm at a point where I'm like, wow, I'm still just so young in my experience of offering this medicine. And I'm, you know, over a decade, over 15 years into this work and to studying in these realms of healing. And it's just such a rich, lovely, lovely thing to be able to share with people. So I feel very grateful.
That's beautiful. I love hearing that. And yeah, it's like I am, you know, even so much more newer to like this world than you. And I can see how like in 15 years time, I would be feeling that same way. Like, cause it gives you so much back as well. It does. And I feel like, do you, just going back to that first thing you said about you find that people usually just have a feeling, do you feel like that's in some way a part of your medicine is like allowing people to kind of follow their intuition and then like in that process adding to their healing? And that's kind of something special that you offer maybe?
100%. I think, you know, I'm very suggestive with my clients, not like prescriptive and, you know, ruling with an iron fist, like you must do this. Yeah. So I'm very suggestive. And, you know, after my herbal medicine consultations, I'm always sending what I call a treatment plan afterwards. So information on the herbs. I give everyone the details of their formula. Like I'm not trying to gatekeep anything. Yes. Yeah. I want people to learn as they're working with me. And I find often, even if people don't care about plants and aren't really interested, often once they feel better, they're like, okay, well, what the heck is this? Like, why did this work? I want to know about this plant. Like, so, you know, they can go back to those treatment plans even years after and find a lot of good, you know, information in there. So I think, yeah, it's so rich and interesting, this work, but definitely for me, a big part of the path has been developing my intuition and really learning to heal myself through my intuition and to develop my intuition. And that was not something at all that I thought was happening when I got on this path. I was very much like, I want to be a clinical herbalist, which is kind of like a medical herbalist. That's a term we use in the US. So I took a lot of kind of one-off classes and studying with people for a number of years. And then when I decided, okay, I really want to root in and make a career of this and get proper 3-year training, I thought I was going to school to become a clinical herbalist, to have people come to me that had high blood pressure and wanted to get off their medication, or had digestive issues and needed something in place of, you know, steroids or something. So I was really approaching it from quite a, almost like a Western medicine mindset of just, you know, I'm a little bit of like a punk. So, you know, it's kind of like, F the system, you know. I'm the same. Yeah, like I was like, this is all lies, you know, like from a young age, you know, I could, I could understand that some of these systems of healing are really manipulative and exploitive and not very healing at all. Well, modern Western medicine is a miracle in so many ways. It also is damaging people in so many ways and damaging the earth in so many ways. And, the whole system is quite exploitative, I think, and very focused on money. So, from a young age, I was like, gosh, this would be so lovely to be able to help people heal either alongside their pharmaceuticals or in place of pharmaceuticals. So that was really where my heart was at. And my heart is still there. But when I began my herbal training, I didn't realize that my consciousness was gonna just split wide open. So I wasn't expecting that kind of shamanic soul spiritual healing and undertaking. And it comes to me again and again and again. And it wasn't something that I was seeking out. It was just meant for me in my path. And it really opened up this way that I work, which is quite grounded in clinical, scientific based herbal medicine, but it's just kind of the base. And there's a lot more going on with how I work with people kind of energetically and spiritually. So that was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting that, but a part of that journey was working with my intuition and developing some of my extrasensory skills, and all of that was from working with the plants. Absolutely. I didn't do any of that myself. It was just the plants completely.
Yeah, I can resonate with that for sure. That's beautiful. So you spoke a little bit about how this has been your journey for a long time, and you moved over from America, and you originally studied in America in the herbal medicine field. I would love to hear how you were introduced to the practice of flower essences. Was that throughout your herbal studies? And what were your first impressions of this particular modality amongst the rest of your trainings?
Yeah, so I was really, really blessed to be in a really great kind of natural medicine community. I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And there's a lot of traditional healing. There's a lot of Chinese medicine practitioners. There's a lot of shamanic healing that's kind of coming through there. There's a lot of kind of Buddhist wisdom coming through there. So there's a real, kind of epicenter where I was living. And I, grew up feeling quite connected to nature. And my grandparents were, always gardening and had amazing kind of skills with plants. So that always felt comfortable to me. But in terms of connecting with flower essences, I feel like it was something at first when I found out about it, it just made sense in a deep kind of spiritual way, in a soul way, but in a kind of intellectual, cognitive way. I was like, that makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. How is this working? So I was probably about 18 when I first was in Santa Fe and was just taking some little, weekend herbal workshop classes with people. And Bach flower essences was the first realm that I kind of learned about and was grounded in flower essences. And yeah, it just, even thinking back, I feel like it was a psychological split where I was okay, so it's so diluted. There's none of the actual plant phytochemicals in it. There's just the vibration of the flower. I was like, oh, okay. All right. It felt like such a stretching of my mental functioning. Yeah. And it also, in a weird way, just totally made sense. And I actually remember one of my teachers was kind of asking the class and was like, so what do you think is left when we dilute down this original, mother essence, when we're diluting it down, like, what do you think is left? If there's no phytochemicals, if in a, lab they couldn't pick up on anything, like, what do you think is left? And everyone in the class was like, oh, like, stumped, confused, trying to figure it out. And I was like, the essence, the energy of, and she was like, yes, exactly. And I was like, okay, I don't even know how I know that, but beautiful. I guess that makes sense. So so that was kind of my first introduction, and it was heavily focused on Bach in like the initial years. That was all I kind of knew about, and that was really all people were teaching me about. So it was heavily Bach. And then years and years later, when I decided to go to proper school for herbal medicine, then it was working with other lines of flower essences.
Beautiful. And did you, once you were introduced to them at that and in the initial stage, did you begin to work with them personally from that time?
Yeah, right away, the Bach line just really called to me. So right away, I think I was reading through the books and was like, oh, like, I kind of feel like I have this problem or this difficulty, like, let me try this one. I think like friends and people around me at the time, I was like talking to them about it. So right away I started experimenting.
Beautiful. I mean, obviously all plants, and working with any plant medicine, including herbal medicine, has this spiritual component to it. But like listening to you earlier talk about how your consciousness just went like, while you were sort of working in this field, like, I feel so deeply that's the action of flower essences and how they open us up so widely like that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to understand that for some folks. Like, if you haven't gone through that and you're like, that just sounds like this hippie woo-woo stuff, like like, what are you talking about? Or like, people are like, oh, are you like on drugs, or do you do like plant medicine ceremonies? And I'm like, no, like, I'm kind of talking about something totally different. So, I think, like, I have a lot of people that would be like, oh, like, I met this, like, this dude in Byron Bay, and he's going to do an ayahuasca ceremony, like Bobby in Byron Bay. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, I'm really going, for like soul healing and all this stuff. And, in my experience, I think that kind of work with plants is not actually appropriate for everyone. And I think flower essences can be more powerful and long-term sustaining and healing for people. So, I'm just like, I know it's a lifelong lover for me,
I love that. Yeah, I feel the same. Lifelong lover. I love that. That's so funny. And I agree. I think that it's almost like they're so hard to understand how it is that they work in such, like, when there is no, like you say, actual chemical component to the plant or anything like that, that people feel the need to go all that other way to, like, the ayahuasca and plant medicine ceremony, and like go the opposite extreme, when you, as you say, like, they can be just as, if not more powerful and long lasting.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. Thank you.
So I'd love to hear what you kind of personally feel it is about plant medicine that makes it such a powerful practice, and so capable of deep healing and transformation, whether that be herbal medicine or vibrational medicine. What's your take on it?
Well, I was kind of thinking about this question this morning from your email, and immediately I wrote down just like stream of consciousness. Plant medicine has an ancient energetic signature that is reviving a lost form of consciousness on this planet. So that's what came to me immediately when I read that question that you sent me. I feel like I just want to read that one more time.
Go for it, yeah.
Plant medicine has an ancient energetic signature that is reviving a lost form of consciousness on this planet. So, from like a very scientific perspective, plants are older than humans. They are, in a sense, our ancestors on this planet. And, I know like some realms of science are, seeing that like maybe some of our genes evolved from plants in different ways. So, it's so kind of mysterious, some of our connection, I think, with plants. And I really believe that each plant has kind of a consciousness to itself. And, I know people are doing like special things, measuring the energy around plants and things like that. And, I think we don't always even need those tools. I think you can just feel. It's like if you, hold a rose to your forehead or hold it to your heart versus holding, a dandelion or, a eucalyptus leaf or something. A lot of people can feel the difference. So I really feel that at like this point in history, like the kind of, even, in the last like 15 years, the real revival that I've seen of so many people studying flower essences and herbal medicine and just getting so into plants, this explosion of the wellness industry and so many herbal companies. I really feel like the plants are so powerful and they're conscious beings that are directing people to be attracted to the plants and to return to the plants. And I know a lot of people can, like something like white sage for, a smoke cleanse. Some people are, like, oh my gosh, it's really exploited. And, that's very true in a sense. But from my point of view, I feel that the consciousness of white sage in the last decade has known people really need me for cleansing the aura, for cleansing the psychic space. This planet really needs me. So I'm just going to get mainstream, I'm just going to get myself in every little, new age bookshop across the world, right? And that's what white sage did. And, I think we often think, oh my gosh, like, it's getting over harvested and all these very concrete earthly problems that are real. But I think we don't always understand that the conscious intention of the plant is so beyond the human concept. And yeah, so I don't know. I could talk about this for days. I don't even know if what I'm saying makes sense, but
100% makes sense. And as you're saying it, I'm just thinking how like we do get so wrapped up in our stories that we create, which are just another form of resistance, right? Like resistance to having this medicine of white sage accessible to us for the healing that we need. And it's like, is this story of it being, overproduced and over sort of used just our story that's a resistance to the medicine of it, And it's like how far our stories and our sort of resistance is in like keeping us stuck, keeping us in this way, And so it totally resonates. I absolutely agree. And it's kind of like the plants do have more consciousness than us. So it's like if white sage is needed so much, it'll grow in abundance anywhere that it needs to be, and we don't need to worry about that, right?
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand, white sage growing where it should not be. So a part of my training, the school that I went to in California, we were trained very much hands-on, so very different than Australian education. I was out in the field in different microclimates of California, wild harvesting plants, doing big camping trips, meeting plants, and in the deserts of Southern California, white sage does grow. And I remember they took us to meet like this grandmother plant of white sage that they've been bringing students from the school there for years, and no one harvested anything. We were just coming to sit with the plant. It was just so beautiful and so lush and so gorgeous. And it was a really like profound moment. And also in that time, I learned that, this is a desert plant. It likes dry soil, it likes heat, it likes sun. And then when I moved here to Melbourne, I met a man that was growing white sage up in the Dandenongs, which is a rainforest. It's damp. There's mold issues up there. It's really can get quite humid. It's a rainforest, and it's not somewhere that anyone would ever think this man could be growing white sage effectively, simply for the moisture content in the air. And, I wish I could remember this guy's name. He had like a piece of paper, and it was at like this kind of wellness expo in the city. And he just had like a little piece of paper, black and white, with this information. Just this very sweet old man that was like so connected to white sage that he just had this relationship with the plant, and he was growing this desert plant in the rainforest in a cold mountain environment where it would never naturally grow. So, I think where there's a will, there's a way. And I also think where there is a connection with the spirit of a plant, it totally changes how you can use it. And I've seen that with other herbs as well. Like, I use Vitex, Chase Tree, a lot in my work with women to help balance hormones and for fertility and menstrual issues. And I dose quite differently than Australian naturopathic herbal medicine folks. I dose a lot lower. And here they're trained to dose quite a fair bit higher. And I remember I was sitting in a Victorian herb meeting thing with other practitioners, and I was telling them like, oh yeah, like I have 100 ml bottle, and I give someone that for the month, and I dose them less than half a teaspoon, and I'm seeing in one menstrual cycle changes and improvement. And they're like, what? No, like you have to dose like a tablespoon 3 times a day. You need to give someone, a 500 ml bottle. No, that's not going to be effective. Like, you're not going to see a difference on blood work. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I've developed a relationship with Vitex for many years. I've healed myself with it, with menstrual issues I had when I was younger. So possibly that relational aspect that I have with the plant is then transmitting something healing to the person that's then taking that plant in the dose that's technically not, maybe supposed to work by some people's standards of education. So yeah, there's just so many different like invisible layers, I think, to working with the plants that I think just experience gives you that information. It's not always something that can be like easily taught.
Absolutely. And like, I love that so much, that relationship, and how that can then, because we do talk about as well, it's as much about the practitioner creating whatever formulation it is as the actual medicine itself. But it also makes me think in that instance of dosing less, it's like a bit like flower essence is, right? That it's like the more diluted it is, the more powerful it is. And it's like, maybe it's that the spirit of that plant is much louder when the actual components of it are less, and maybe it's just like, we're so used to like this overconsumption, this like, we need more to do more, that maybe we're just missing the point that we need less to do more,
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. I love that so much. So you predominantly work with bark and the Californian essences. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the remedies that you use most commonly with your clientele?
Yeah. So I have made a nice little list. I was like sitting here in my office this morning, like, okay, who wants to be talked about on this? Like, come on, friends. I think because I work predominantly with women, it's often like kind of the core themes. So boundaries, energetic boundaries, psychic boundaries, verbal boundaries, all sorts of boundary issues. And then kind of connecting that to like confidence. issues, courage, really just having the ability to speak up for oneself, whether that's in relationships or work or, even to live your life for yourself and not always for others. So those are definitely like heavy themes that kind of are always coming through. Probably like the top kind of ones that I work with: Star of Bethlehem, Borage, Rose, Self-Heal, Sunflower, Yarrow, Mariposa Lily, Morning Glory. So do you want me to talk a little bit
Go
about
for it? Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I'll just start with Star of Bethlehem. So Star of Bethlehem is from the original Bach creation of flower essences, and it's wonderful for like shock and trauma. So it's something that people can use, if there's like a car accident or, something happening presently. But I typically am using it for someone that is presenting with a shock or trauma in their history. And this could be far back in the past. This could be as a child, it could be 10 years ago. So often it's folks that I find there's like a real nervous system dysregulation. Their nervous system's just kind of on alert all the time. There's, maybe a conscious knowledge of shock or trauma in the past, but often a lot of people aren't really connecting that shock or trauma to the possible current issue.
Yeah.
It's really like soothing to the nervous system and can really help in conjunction with talk therapy for people that have kind of unresolved trauma from the past. So sometimes it can kind of create that healing crisis. So kind of bringing things up and out. Often, when the nervous system is so frazzled and heightened and dysregulated, it's really hard to, get grounded enough to integrate our past shocks and traumas and really process them and also really feel them. Often these kind of folks, I find they're really good at kind of numbing, busyness, maybe some addictive patterns, just doing anything they can to kind of fill things up so that there's not spaciousness to really feel the feelings, process the past. So Star of Bethlehem is definitely like a key one that I've used for so long now and seen so many interesting shifts and changes for people. I think really for any of us, there is some sort of shock and trauma in our past. Even if you've had a great childhood, a great life, there's always something. Yes. And that's just life. That's, a normal part of the human experience. I find that's a really, really good one. For that shock and trauma.
It's interesting because I would say the, equivalent in the Australian bushflower remedies to that is like the fringed violet, which also works on that level of the shock and trauma and releasing that from the body. But at the same time, it also works on repairing the energetic body, the aura, and the subtle body, which is boundaries, right? Boundaries, like what you speak about. It's like that implementation of both energetic boundaries, physical boundaries, and psychic boundaries. And it's like, just this cue of like, so many people don't realize that like whatever shock and trauma that they may have had in the past has potentially created a break in their energetic boundaries. And that's why they feel like they're trying to feel up to not sort of feel all of the things going on around them and deal with all of the things going on around them that's seeping into their experience, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, because we can go our whole life without someone saying, oh, I feel like your aura, your energy bubble around you is a bit disrupted or disturbed. We can go our whole life without someone bringing that to our awareness and attention. And it's, not something most people can see. It's not something most people are aware of. And, it's so impactful, like the energy kind of comes out and into the body. So yeah, it's a really important one. And I think Star of Bethlehem's really nice in that way. I mean, it would pair so nicely with fringe violet. But it's so nice in that way where I think if there's just like this feeling, like someone's like, I'm not healing, I don't know what the thing is, I'm confused, I think it can be a really good remedy just to try and see what comes from that. And I find for a lot of people, it brings stuff up and out.
Yes.
And, that's where then kind of the talk therapy can be really supportive and helpful.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right, let me see what else I got here on my list. So another one that I use a lot is borage, and that's from the California Fluorescence Society. And that I use a lot for courage and optimism. If we're like talking astrology, it's like very Jupiter kind of energy. So really good for people that have, lost their courage in life, have just felt like they're so boxed in, they're afraid to take chances, they're unhappy, but they're afraid to make change, or they're lacking that courage to believe that change is possible and believe in kind of their power and capacity to improve their lives. So that's one that I find is really helpful as well for times when we're just kind of totally knocked down, like the death of a loved one, people are really in grief. It's great for, kind of heavy-hearted times, they like to say. And I find it's helpful for those intense times of loss, grief, where, your heart's just been smashed. It's really helpful for that. But it's also helpful for folks that have just kind of been living for years and years, not really from a place of courage within their heart. So yeah, it has a nice kind of double function, at least how I see it. So yeah, that's borage. I use a lot of rose in conjunction with borage. So just to work on the heart field, bring in that kind of feminine, nurturing type of essence. I also really like to encourage people to like start smelling more roses. I think even the scent of a rose can really, invigorate people's connection to their soul and to their true self. Absolutely. So in terms of like, people that are maybe quite cut off from their true self, maybe had a childhood where they were quite conditioned into like becoming a lawyer, and they actually hate it, but they don't even know what they do like because they've just so disconnected from their heart. I think rose can be really, really beneficial. And, I think in this intense period of history when people are, taking in so much information and, sometimes feeling really doom and gloom about the state of the world, I think rose is a really good one to return to, especially in conjunction with borage, to bring that kind of courage and really giving people a sense of hope to their lives. I also use a lot of self-heal. So that's from the California line as well. And that one I use so much because it's really connected with kind of activating people's own inner healing capacity. So, it's, I think, so easy to like come to a practitioner and be like, okay, I'm paying you, I'm here for the appointment, heal me, fix me, right? And if we don't have activation of our own willpower to focus on our healing and listen to that inner voice when, we're trying to choose like fried food over vegetables, or, a toxic relationship over a positive one. Like, we need to have that inner healing capacity. And I think in our, in our society, like, we're just so used to kind of handing our healing over. Like in modern medicine, it's just like, you don't know anything, you're an idiot, you have a feeling about your body, doctors don't care, hand over your authority, hand over your knowledge, like no one is going to believe you.
Yeah.
And I think that really diminishes people's awareness of how much power they do have. So I love, love, love self-heal for that capacity. And even for things like, after illness or after birth, after a shock or a trauma, or healing kind of a mysterious injury, I find it can be really helpful for folks with autoimmune issues where it's like really mysterious, right? We have all these autoimmune conditions overlapping with boundary issues and overlapping with childhood trauma. And, you know, it's like a portrait that we're painting here of these folks. And the common themes are just so common at this point that at least I see in my practice. So I think for these people, self-heal can be so helpful because it really kind of puts them in the driver's seat and really kind of wakes them up to like, okay, how does this medicine actually feel in my body? How does this herb actually feel in my body? What do I need to heal? Is this for my healing or counteracting my healing? So yeah, I love, love, love self-heal for that.
I think I've never used self-heal, but I think what it's bringing up for me, again, probably the similar one in the Australian bushfire essences is Southern Cross. And I love using this with clients because it is that same like standing in your personal power, but like stopping that victim mentality and like, you know, releasing that the world is happening to you and putting you in the driver's seat rather. And I think it's such a big part of healing because our power has been like without even knowing taken away from us, like you say, by all of the conditioning and all of the stories. And, you know, some people kind of need like that, like you say, wake up, like that rude wake up, like kick in the shins to be like, you're the one responsible for this, like, you know. And it's interesting because it's like I have noticed as well that, you know, I might be working with clients for a number of months and then when it's time to actually use the Southern Cross with them, it is such a shift and like they're able to like take such a leap and take such like a big step forward and really take their responsibility on themselves and into their own hands. So it's like I can see how self-heal would be that similar sort of remedy. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's really a consciousness shift when I think people get to that point. And you know, I try to be really, really, really clear with people. Like I can't fix everything, right? And the plants can't fix everything. Like if you have all these negative mental attachments to whatever the story is, if your mind is just running junk all day in there, there's only so much we can do. Like we have to really get in there deeply. And I think that can be, yeah, like a really rude awakening and really painful and really hard for a lot of people. I think for all of us on some level, we all experience that. And I think it's like, it really breaks people down so then they can kind of build back up. And, you know, I've just seen so many different situations where people come back to me, you know, maybe 6 months later or a year later, and they're like, oh, you know what? I realized that medication I was taking actually gives me headaches. And I didn't even notice it because it's like they just get so disconnected and cut off from the body. Yeah. You know, like food allergies, that's a really hard one for some people to tackle. Like you cannot eat gluten, you cannot eat dairy, you know, and they're like, I'm going to keep doing it. And it's like, well, you need to have the willpower and the belief and the love for yourself to know that that's not a healing food for you. And, you know, having diarrhea 3 times a week is not good for your digestive system. And no one can stop putting that in your mouth but you. So, you know, for things like that, self-heal can be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, just so magical. Is there any other ones in particular that you would love to share about and sort of like the transformations you've been able to facilitate with them?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I have to mention Angelica. So that one I use a lot for really connecting people with their spirituality, connecting people with, you know, this sense of like a higher power and, you know, their own divine guidance and meaning in the world. And, you know, aside from kind of religion or, you know, specific spiritual practices, I find, you know, people that can feel like, Their soul is just like, what is this planet? It's so scary here. What's going on? And, there can be a real like fear-based kind of thinking. Angelica can just bring this kind of, almost angel energy. They all of a sudden just feel more content and safe in the world. And it can be really good as well for kind of like threshold of like birth and death, where there's a transition into or from the spirit realm or, great mystery realm. So I really love Angelica. I also use, kind of in conjunction with borage, often sunflower. So, if you think of a sunflower like standing so tall, they've got this thick, strong stalk. It's like standing way higher than most plants. And, that big kind of orange, yellowy, happy, big kind of presence. So I think, again, people that have maybe confidence issues, self-love issues, it can really, really help with confidence, which is just, such a huge issue. And it's connected more to kind of like the masculine forces. So if there's issues with father or issues with the kind of yang masculine side of their being, that can be a really, really helpful one as well. I use, in terms of boundaries, I use yarrow a lot for boundaries. So that would be, again, kind of like an equivalent to the fringed violet, helping with kind of auric protection, energetic boundaries. In the California Flower Essence Society system, they use like pink yarrow, regular white yarrow, yellow yarrow. I usually use pink and white. And really just for folks that are either hypersensitive to their environment, like lots of allergies, reacting to everything, feel socially overwhelmed. It can really help kind of rebuild the aura after like abusive relationships, anything where there's just too much of a merging of self with others or with environment. I love yarrow. And then I use a lot like morning glory and mountain pennyroyal for folks that are like, sometimes when I work with folks in a healing session, it's like they come to me and I feel like on an energetic level, we have to kind of like sweep away the conditioning, the family pressure, the society pressure, all these things from social media that are like in their aura and kind of stuck there. So sometimes it's like we have, at least in my experience working with people, I have to really like clear away a lot to actually like get into who they actually are and what is actually at the root. So mountain pennyroyal is really good for kind of treating like psychic contamination, and really bringing kind of clarity and strength of thought, which I feel like with just the rise of technology and excessive amounts of information, excessive amounts of kind of unnatural connection with, hundreds of people on social media and things like that, or thousands or millions for some people. That kind of psychic contamination, I think, is, in my experience, becoming more common. Yeah. So, I love mountain pennyroyal for that. And then morning glory helps to kind of strengthen like the vital force. So that can be good for people with like addictive late night tendencies, like they're just late night scrolling on social media or drinking or drugs or excessive partying, and they wake up every morning and they're just kind of dull, hungover, like actually hungover, or they just naturally seem hungover. They kind of have trouble like inhabiting their body. They're so kind of outside of themselves. Yeah. So I really like morning glory for kind of bringing that vital force really back into the body, and just kind of clearing some of that dullness in the being.
Beautiful. I actually have a morning glory essence that I was given a few weeks ago that's waiting here for me to take it. So maybe this is my cue.
I just think like the vital force shift is definitely felt from that one. I just have to mention two more.
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Because I work with kind of the feminine, like women, pregnancy, fertility, or people in, more feminine identifying bodies, even if that's not their chosen gender. There's so much work to do right now, I think, with the feminine energy, the yin energy of life. And I really, really like Mariposa lily and hibiscus. So these two are really heavily used, also in conjunction with rose for that feminine support. So hibiscus I use a lot for really helping like bring people into their pleasure, their sexuality, if there's been like trauma in the past, or maybe they're kind of in a new relationship, really like reclaiming pleasure and sexuality, and releasing kind of shame around these different aspects of the feminine. So yeah, hibiscus I use a lot as well. And then Mariposa lily is another one from the California line, and it's just such a beautiful one for mother wounds. So it can be whether you have mother wounds from your own upbringing. It can also be if you're actively mothering and, really struggling to kind of connect with that warm, nurturing, compassionate mother element with your child. If people are struggling to bond with the baby after birth, it can be really helpful. And I find it can also be helpful for people that maybe have absorbed some of this societal projection of a real kind of negativity around mothering, like, oh, mothering's a waste of time, mothering's going to drain all my energy and ruin my life, mothering's going to ruin my body if I'm pregnant, all of these kind of negative mental attachments and projections that people can put onto mothering. Mariposa lily can just be really beautiful for bringing some women that have lived in kind of a hyper masculine realm for a long time back into even just mothering themselves, nurturing themselves, having warmth and compassion for themselves. So yeah, I just love Mariposa lily as well. So anyway, that's
beautiful. Do you find with those two, when you're working with those with clients, the Mariposa and the hibiscus, that also has like an impact on their creativity? Because really it's working on that like creation center and like that sort of area of our body and our energy. Do you find there's like a shift in like their actual creative, creativity, creative expression, sort of following their creativity and actually allowing themselves to do that?
100%. Yeah. And I think it kind of presents differently for everyone. Like some people, it can present in like the menstrual cycle where they're like, oh, whoa, like I had a different kind of bleed, and it's kind of energetically releasing through that monthly cycle. Other people, like I'll have clients like they're always like in black, always in black, always in black. They're very like Melbourne black. They're chic. They're amazing. They're artists. Like it's gorgeous. Yeah. But then I like they come one time and I'm like, oh, look at you in like your beautiful floral dress. Really nice, and they're like, I just felt really called to it. Like I never normally wear this color, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's the essences. So
I love that.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen so many, physical and more kind of emotional, energetic shifts with those two for sure.
Beautiful. That's so nice. So you've gone through some of the ones you use more commonly with your clientele. I'd love to hear if you have any sort of essences that you use personally that have, that are either your sort of something that you favor, or maybe there's some personal experiences that you've had with the essences that really you'd love to share, that are really kind of prominent to you and sort of interesting.
Yeah, so like my experiences with using the essences, I mean, it's been so long now, and I feel like I definitely like dip in and out, I dip in and out, but, especially in my younger years when I first started studying herbal medicine and working with plants, like The concept of boundaries, like I was like, what? Like I was so not thinking about that. And I remember, one of my herbal medicine teachers kind of bringing that idea to me, and I was like, boundaries? Crazy. Like people are doing that? Like, oh my God. So, I'm a Pisces rising sign, a Pisces ascendant in astrology. I'm an Aquarius. I have my moon in the first house. I have my sun in the 12th house. I'm a projector in human design. Like I am in some ways really blessed with extrasensory gifts and ability to perceive others on a deep level and to see into others on a deep level. And I am so thankful for things like yarrow flower essence, garlic flower essence, another one, the Devil's Club flower essence that I worked with a lot when I was younger I feel like even just establish boundaries in my auric field, because I think I didn't really have ones that were suiting me. Yeah. So yeah, definitely the boundaries work with flower essences has been huge and is, still ongoing. But it's at a point now where I feel like I can actually teach and help people with boundaries, because I've walked a path of figuring mine out for so long now. And definitely yarrow has probably been the biggest ally in that journey.
I actually I had my flower card deck out before, and a card dropped out, and I was wondering if it was for you.
Okay, what is it?
It's alpine mint bush, which is like revitalization for caregivers, but it is also those boundaries, especially within practicing, like as a practitioner, and caring for others, and like that boundary of saying no when you don't have that capacity to give anymore, and sort of like just that divine support in revitalizing and holding you. So I think that might be for you.
Definitely for me. Yeah, that's definitely for me. And in this like stage of life, as I said, I'm still working out my maiden to mother transition of my business and the work that I offer. And yeah, that's like definitely for me working out, how to hold space and caregive for people professionally in such a tremendous way, while also, full-time mothering my son and being really present with him in a way that is maybe atypical to how some people do it. So yeah, I'm definitely in that phase of life. And I like to be really transparent with my clients. Like, I'm not good at admin. I'm slow. I definitely have some like ADHD tendencies. My skill is really in the realm of spirit and working in that realm, not like admin and things like that of life. And while I'm always on a path to try and improve things and make, my business thrive and flourish, in this stage of mothering, that card is very resonant with me. I am working out how to, do this new stage and chapter, because I've given so much of my life my whole adult life to caregiving and supporting others. And the capacity is really different once you, have children and are caregiving in that way. So thank you. I receive it. I'm going to write that down. What was it?
Alpine mint bush.
Alpine mint bush. Okay. I'm not familiar with that one. I'll look it up. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. I love it. So I'd love to, here you have spoken to the flower essences that sort of jump out the most for you, but what are some of your favorite plant allies in general, both in herbal medicine and flower essences?
Yeah, so definitely Vitex, which is also called Chase Tree. That is just a fantastic herb for the menstrual cycle, for hormonal balance, for promoting progesterone. We live in an environment that is unfortunately quite estrogenic in a synthetic sense. So, chemicals in shampoo and perfume can kind of sway the hormonal balance to be excessively estrogenic, which is not ideal for the body. So Vitex is just like a great ally for menstrual pain, for prepping the body for pregnancy, for anyone with kind of low progesterone issues, irregular periods, excessively long periods. So that has been a staple in my life and in the work I do with clients for a really long time. So I love Vitex. I love, so many plants, but I think, at this point, I probably work with about 30 plants typically. It probably can extend maybe to 50 at times, but, like my bottles over here of liquid extracts, probably like 45 in there right now. Yeah. My shelf here of dried herbs, there's probably maybe 40 different herbs in there as well. So I think it's super important, like if folks are starting off with herbal medicine, I like to encourage people like try to learn 10 really well. Like you can do so much with knowing 10 plants really well. Yeah. So yeah, for me, like reishi mushroom is one I use a lot for kind of spiritual components. It supports, the immune system. It's an immune modulator, so it can be helpful for autoimmune issues, but also people that feel disconnected from their spirit. It's used a lot in Chinese medicine. It's like the mushroom, of like immortality and of spirituality. So I have like a reishi baby. Have you heard of the reishi baby?
I was just about to say, I don't know where I heard it, but one time I heard this, that if you take reishi while you're pregnant, you get a reishi baby.
Yeah. So I've got a reishi baby. So in like traditional Chinese medicine, like they have, different historical kind of accounts of women consuming reishi mushroom. And it's like a Shen kind of vital force kind of strengthener and like a spiritual strengthener. And then these women often are giving birth to babies that have a really strong vital force, a really strong kind of soul presence. And so I did that in like preconception and while I was pregnant. And folks do have to be careful because reishi can kind of lower blood pressure. So some people want to just be careful with that. But I took it in very small doses. And, as soon as my son was born, like everyone was like, wow, he's like really making eye contact. Like, wow, his eyes are just like open and he's really looking at me. He doesn't seem kind of dazed and asleep like most newborns. Like, oh, wow, like he's so present. So everyone was commenting on that right away. And I was like, oh yeah, like I feel like people can feel like that Shen, that energy from him that's, hopefully been cultivated in utero with the reishi. So
that's incredible. I love that so much. Beautiful.
I'm trying to think what else. I do lots of kind of nourishing, very kind of simple herbs like nettle, oat straw, red clover, alfalfa. I like to use a lot of those with people, just for kind of mineral nutrient deficiencies, really like nourishing low iron levels, things like that. Oat straw, I love. That's one that I feel is really applicable to everyone because of its support of the nervous system. And, in my opinion, we're living in a time of just complete nervous system assault. Yeah. And, from just the stress of life, the pace of life, toxins in the environment, stressful information on social media, energetic disruptions, radiation, EMF disruption. So I think oat straw is really applicable to everyone. So I feel like if listeners are like, I just want to try one herb, and like, go get oat straw, have it in tea. You might want to sweeten it with honey, but it's a really good one for, just stress and after periods of anxiety, things like that. I use a lot of those like nutritive herbs and a lot of adaptogens as well. So reishi would be classed as an adaptogen, astragalus, rhodiola, and adaptogens help the body essentially adapt to stress and strengthen different systems of the body. So they all have different components, but I find that everyone needs help adapting to stress in our modern world, just like everyone needs oat straw and nervous system support. I use a lot of the adaptogens, a lot of lemon balm, passion flower, like mild nervines, mild sedatives, which, I mean, I've had some people on sleeping tablets for years, and they're like, I have to get off these. Like, I can't stay on these. And they can, lower the dosage and then slowly transition onto herbs and feel a real shift. Like, oh, I actually got a deep sleep and I don't have all these kind of side effects. I don't feel super hungover in the morning. Definitely like sedatives, nervines, adaptogens, nutritive herbs. That's kind of the core, I'd say, of what I work with.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of those. Reishi's definitely one of my favorite too.
So good.
So I just have one last question for you today. What do you believe the world needs most right now? It's a big one.
Yeah. Let me sit with that. I think compassion. I think compassion. I think, we're living in a time that it feels so heightened and divisive and intense. And, as far as I'm concerned, like all of the social problems, the environmental problems, the political problems, the healthcare problems, like all of the kind of corruption and struggle within these systems, like these are really human problems. Like, we don't have a problem like with the environment. We have a human problem that is causing environmental issues. So I think compassion is really important. And, really knowing that even if you totally disagree with someone, even if you're like, I'm so disgusted that they think that's the truth, I think understanding that if you walked in their shoes, if you lived their childhood and their life, you might arrive at some of the same thinking. If you grew up where they did, you might arrive at some of the same thinking. So, I feel like compassion really just leads to acceptance of the truth in many ways. So, that would be my hope.
Yes. Thank you. That's beautiful. And I really agree. And compassion, I think, is something that really does get overlooked, but is such a crucial piece that we need to come back together, and stop the divisiveness. Because really all we know is our own experience. We don't know anyone else's experience. We can't live from anyone else's experience. So the compassion piece is huge for sure.
Yes. Yeah. It's making me think something else I didn't mention about what I offer, but I do monthly full moon and new moon ceremonies. So I totally forgot to mention that. That's like a kind of spiritual, energetic component to what I offer. And, right now I offer those online every full and new moon. I was doing them for years in person in Melbourne. And then in the last few years I've moved them online. And, in that space, like, I'm also an astrologer, so I'm sharing about astrology in a real layman's general term that people can understand. That I think brings compassion to us naturally. Like when we talk about these different, very humanizing dynamics of the human experience that we all go through, it's very, very healing and humanizing. It can make us feel like, oh, I'm not the only one that's feeling messed up. I'm not the only one that's struggling. And, you know, in that kind of moon ceremony space, it's like sharing about current astrology components. And then we do a bit of like a women's circle. And then there's kind of healing, drumming, energetic work at the end. It's just so interesting seeing the women that have been in that for years now and the growth of compassion for themselves in hearing other people's stories and really kind of, humanizing things and knowing like, oh yeah, okay, we're all going through something.
Yes.
You know, we're all in the human experience and, you know, suffering, pain, confusion, it's all a part of the human experience and it's really, really normal. And I think if we can walk alongside each other with compassion for ourselves and for others, it just makes the world nicer, warmer, more cozy, more comforting, you know, more safe. And I feel like that's really simple, but really, really important right now.
Yes. Beautiful. So if people would like to join in on your circles or to work with you, where can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Caitlin Covington. My business is called Flora Stone Apothecary. So on Instagram, it's Flora Stone Apothecary. And then my website is florastoneapothecary.com. And I'm redoing my website right now. So if you want to work with me, you can just email me or reach out on Instagram. And then, every new and full moon, I hold online moon ceremony and women's circle that, anyone can join.
Thank you. So before we tune out, is there anything else you wanted to touch on or feel called to share as well today?
I'm a very optimistic person. I'm an idealist. As I said before, I'm a little bit of a punk and a rebel and a free thinker and a critical thinker. And I feel like it's really important for all of us to envision a better future and for all of us to put our energy and our life force and our daily intention and attention towards goodness and towards our local community creating positive things, or, an online community creating positive things. I really feel like it's so easy to get in the gloom and the doom of all of the struggle that's present in the world right now. And I really, really believe that there's a lot of growth happening and a lot of change happening. I feel like just envisioning a positive future, I really feel like we have a whole incorrect skew of balance in medicine, right? It's like most of us, it's like 90% modern medicine is what people live within. And, that's applicable if you have serious health conditions. But if you're a normal person, blessed to be born in a healthy body, 9 times out of 10, pharmaceutical medication, pharmacy medication should not be the first choice for a cold, a flu, allergies, not being able to sleep. So many simple things can be treated with natural medicines, with herbs that you can grow in your backyard, things you can buy from the health food shop. So I really feel that, it's also a time that our biology is really crying out to return back to traditional nature-based medicines in all their many beautiful forms. I really, we've seen like such a dip in the health of children in the last number of decades. And I feel like it's really up to us to kind of reclaim with curiosity and joy and belief, the power of plants as medicine and like the earth as a healing force. So, I envision a future where you can go to a hospital and, get acupuncture to help you recover from your surgery. You can go to your doctor and say, oh, like my kid is sick, and they won't immediately say, oh, have them take antibiotics. They'll say, oh, you know what, let's give them a little elderberry and echinacea. You know, like that's the future that I envision, and I fully believe it's fully possible. And it's also an easy choice people can make right now. The system doesn't have to be there for you to live like that. You can make that choice right now. Just Google search, you know, who's your herbalist, who's your naturopath, who's your flower essence practitioner in your community. Like there's millions of us out here, like ready to connect you with the plants. And, you know, just knowing that that is available, you know, now, especially with online, you can live in the middle of nowhere and get flower essences sent to you. You know, it's all possible right now. So yeah, that's kind of my positive hope for the future and what I'm, you know, trying to create in this lifetime.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful. Oh, well, this has been so nice. I've loved chatting with you, and thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom and just your passion. Obviously, you have so much passion for what you do. So thank you for sharing with us all.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the space to talk and the amazing questions. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. And I will put Caitlin's links in the show notes as well. And I'll be back next week.